Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video we are going to look at two powerful features of Playwright. They are the mocking and resource blocking. First we will take a look at the mocking concept. So Playwright can be used to mock an API call. That means even if the API is not live and it is still in development, or maybe the API is down, you can still mimic that a response is coming back from the API as if it were live. So the main tool we are going to use is this page.route. So let me show you the sample test that I have and see how it works. So we have a simple API for a web page. So let me show you the page here. So this is a page, Playwright demo page, that renders a list of fruits. So this is coming from an API. So when I refresh the page, or when I go to the page for the first time, the page makes a live call to the API to retrieve the list of fruits and displays it on the UI. Suppose, let's say, this API is not ready in the page and you don't want to verify this. You can actually mock as if the response is coming back from a live API. Or in other words, you might want to mock a list of hundreds of fruits to make sure the page is loading those fine. So you can pretend that the API is live, and you can simulate that a response is coming back and it is displayed on this page. So how do we do that? So we are going to intercept that API call and provide with our own list of fruits. So that is sent to the web page and it is going to display. So here you have a test, and this test is mocking that a list of fruits is being loaded on the page, even though the API is actually not up and running. That means we are going to use the page.route, which is the main tool for this. So what it is doing is, it is actually pointing to the endpoint of the API endpoint where that is used to get the list of fruits. Now we are going to intercept this API call, and we are going to pretend that the API is going to return a 200 OK response and a JSON content in the body. And what it is going to return, we can put anything that we want to pretend that the API is returning to us in the body of the response. So here I am putting some sample names like Cypress and WebDriver IO, but in your case you can pretend that the API is returning whatever you wish to return, so that it will display on your application under test. So we are not going to hit the real server. Instead, whenever the page is trying to fetch the list of fruits, we are going to pretend the Playwright, when it is loading the page, it is going to hijack that call, you can say, or intercept, and bring this response, so to mimic the mocking concept. So this is how we use the page.route and the API endpoint, and the route. Whenever the page requests this route request API call, it is going to be fulfilled and the API response is going to be intercepted, and this response is going to be sent whenever the web page is trying to call this API. So it's going to get a 200 response and this body. So that is what we need to set in the test first, and then we need to make the test to navigate to the actual page. So when the test tries to navigate to a page, it is going to try to fetch the fruits, and our mock kicks in. What is that mock? This setup. So what happens? The moment the page tries to fetch the fruits, it's not going to get the live data. It is actually going to get the data that we have set up, the mock response. So let's see. And then the page is going to load only the two tool names instead of all the fruits or any information that you have mocked in this step. So let's run this test and see it for ourselves. The mocking setup here, and it is now going to go to the actual page, and let's see what happens. So you can see there, it didn't load the the page tried to call the API, and what it got in the response? Not the fruits, because the Playwright has intercepted that API call and returned the two tool names, the automation tool names, so the Cypress and WebDriver. So this is how you mock the intercept the API call, and then the test is going to verify that, and it is going to pass. So there you have it. So that's the first concept we learned, how to intercept an API call and mock as if the API is returning our custom data that we set up here. So this technique is very useful when you want to control your test environment, and it is useful in any circumstances, such as the API is down, the developer is still working on the code, or sometimes the API calls, you want to prevent unnecessary calls happening in various places in your web page, which might slow your test. So you want to speed up the test. Let's say you want to verify only the text on this page, and in that scenario, in that automated test case, you don't care about what the API is returning. You can simply intercept that API call and make it return a simple body. So the request is actually not going to the outside third-party server, for example, third-party API. So your test runs fast because all you need to test in that test case is only the text. So you can control the test environment, the page, using this mocking feature. And the next concept we are going to see is blocking a resource. A resource means any links on the page or image on the page or anything on the page that you want to block. So let me show you a sample demo page that has this image. This image might be a big image, like many megabytes, that might be slowing down your test, or you want to just block the image so your test runs faster. So in that case you can block a resource. Playwright gives you another tool called route.about. So let me explain this with another test that I have here. So this is the actual page. This is a sample page that is running from my local server, and the test that I have is here. So here in this test, I am trying to block this image, which is a resource in the page. So how do I do that? So you can see this is a test to block the image on the page. So this page actually contacts this picsum.photos website to load this image. So what we are going to say is, whenever this page loads, it is going to make a call to the image server where it has a list of photos. So when it's trying to call that image, we are blocking that image to be loaded on the page. So how do we do that? So we use the page.route and then the route of the image, which we can inspect and confirm. And you can see the photo image is https://picsum.photos/600/400. So it's a random photo generating link. So we use a regular expression to say whenever the network connection goes to this URL and loads the resource, what you are going to do is we are going to abort that resource. That is, in other words, we are going to block that resource from loading in the page. So you can see this public URL. Every time I refresh this page, this refresh causes a new image to be loaded on the page. So it is actually this route.about. Page.route says what is the URL of the resource, and what we are going to do with it. We are going to abort or block, and then we are actually going to the test page, and this test actually makes sure that the page image exists, and then we are going to verify that it was blocked. And how we are going to do is do and evaluate this command, this script, to do that. So let me explain you more on this. So when you want to, so it's going to block the resource, right? In this case, it's the image. It can be a video or ad or anything. So the route.about actually prevents the image. It makes sure that the image on the page never loads. Then is blocked is true, and we are checking that the blocked is true. So when this block will be true, it will be true only when there is no image. In other words, the image element width is 0. It's all in the same test and it is already paused, and we are going to see the let it run. So it is right here. So let me bring the Playwright debugger. So you can see here, so we have the initial setup. Just like we have done the mocking setup, we need to do the blocking, resource blocking setup, and only then you should navigate to your page. So now let's see, when we navigate to the page, when I execute this page.go command, yes, the image is not there. What happened? You saw the image was there before and it kept changing. But once after we blocked that image, you see the image is not there. And if I try to inspect the image, and this is where I was talking about the property of the image. So you can see the property, and although it has some property, but the test actually runs this natural width, which will be 0 if no image loaded. So let's see if it passes. So you saw the test passed. So that is how you block a resource. It might be an ad, hundreds of ad on the page which you don't want to load, or the vendor or the third party image source might be loading a lot of images, causing the test to slow down. We saw these two powerful concepts in Playwright, and that's it, guys. You have learned these two fundamental concepts of Playwright Network Interception: mocking with route.fulfill, which we saw in the first example, and blocking with route.about. These simple techniques, although they may seem simple, will give you incredible control over your test environment. In the next video, we will dive deeper and look at how to create dynamic mocks and simulate network delays. See you there.